from Mr. Sarnikar, Chairman, ICFAI Group. He could not be with us because he is out of country. Mr. Sarnikar believes that the topic of today's lecture is very appropriate and is of great interest to the young graduates of IBS. We are honored to have with us Mr. R. Ramakrishnan, Joint MD and Group CEO of Polycab Group. Mr. Ramakrishnan holds the position of Vice Chairman, Joint MD and CEO of the 4,500 crore Polycab Group. Prior to Polycab, Mr. Ramakrishnan played a very successful leadership role in Bajaj Electricals Limited for 12 years. The company was transformed from a 300 crore company in 1999 to a 3,100 crore company by 2012. Mr. Ramakrishnan is an active speaker in international conferences. His co-speakers in these events included luminaries like former US President Bill Clinton. He has also delivered talks at Harvard University, Stanford University, Columbia, Kellogg, Chicago Booth, MIT Sloan, and London Business School. Mr. Ramakrishnan is the past president of the Bombay Management Association. He also serves on the executive committee of the Indian Society of Advertisers and the Corporate Governance and Industry Committee of Indian Merchants Chamber. He is considered an expert on India and China, economic policies, manufacturing, marketing, and change management. We invite you, sir, to please deliver the keynote address.
Good evening, everybody. Mrs. N J Yesaswy, Professor Y.K. Bhushan, my dear friend Indrapal Singh ji, Professor Hemant Purandare, Mr. Reddy, Mr. Chandrasekhar, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. I find this to be a very humbling moment, paying tribute to someone of the stature of Mr. N J Yesaswy, whom I had the privilege of meeting twice in my life, once in Hyderabad and once in Bombay. And what really touched me about him was, despite his towering achievements, his simplicity, his humility, and his passion, which was so very evident in that video that you saw just now. It reminds me of my favorite poem, The Psalm of Life, by H.W. Longfellow. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. It's not enough to leave footprints. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing over life's Solomon main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing shall take heart again. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. I think we should all give a big round of applause to celebrate the life of Mr. Yasaswy for creating such fantastic institutions. Can I have the presentation on, please? Don't solutions, a managerial perspective. Go ahead. That humble tribute. To me, Mr. Yasaswy was a legend in his lifetime, a great institution builder, a visionary and executor, a thinker and a teacher, a very able administrator and a leader, a great team builder, above all a patriot, an educationist, and most importantly an inspiration to many generations of students and faculty and institutions. Since I happen to be working in Polycab, we are a company which is India's largest cable and wire company. Started from a small 200 square feet shop in Loharchal 40 years ago, and today we sell our products across 30 countries in the world. Keep going ahead. So a huge pan-India distribution and a company with substantial strength, and the Jaisinghani family that has promoted it is something which has built Polycab into an institution. Yesterday's India was a land of many slum dogs and a few millionaires. And the new India, we know the Chandrayaan mission, we know the Mars mission, and we know everything else. How do the economists look at India? Clearly, today we are a happening economy, $1.7 trillion in terms of GDP, purchasing power parity basis, $4.2 trillion, 5 times growth in our per capita income in the last 15 years, and clearly we will be the fastest growing GDP globally, and we might overtake China probably even by 2016. Next, in terms of the rate of growth of the GDP. Consumer markets are clearly booming. Go ahead. So there is a big pot of gold. The Indian consumer story is there for everyone to see. Next. Anything we say about India, there is an equal counterfact. Of course, there are 126,000 dollar millionaires in India and 30 to 40 dollar billionaires. However, 40% of our population lives at less than $1 a day, and 80% of our population lives at less than $2 a day. The subsidy that a cow gets in the US is $1 a day, and that is what 80% of our nation lives on. Go back. Everyone says we are a young nation. However, there are 6 crore people in India who are above the age of 60, including my parents. Do we have social security for them? Do we have health care for them? Do we have insurance benefits for them? Do we have any kind of a social security net? The answer is no. So are we young or are we old? People say that we are an IT superpower, but probably despite the mobile telephony and its penetration, there are still probably 30 crore people in this country who have not heard the ring of a telephone. And 55% of our GDP is from services, while 55% of our workforce depends on agriculture. So are we a services economy or are we an agricultural economy? Having said this preamble, I am going to look at some major problems, probably not all of this given the paucity of time. I will dwell upon some of these key challenges and try and see as to what can be the addressability. Now, why am I speaking on this topic today? Mr. Yesaswy believed in education as a means to nation building. And if we, so many years after our independence, are still having extremely important problems such as primary education, rural health, creating employment opportunities, infrastructure-related issues, energy problems, attracting foreign direct investment for manufacturing-led export growth, agriculture, the population problem, the corruption issues. How do we ensure development with equity, the issues related to bureaucracy? And I'm afraid I'll not be able to cover all those areas. Then I think clearly we have some issues. Fortunately, there is a fantastic silver lining. The Modi government marks the first time in the Indian polity that someone who has been a grassroots worker, who has administrative experience of having run an economically strong state, who also has the complete political backing of his political party as also the political formation, and having a very strong majority in the Lok Sabha, not yet in the Rajya Sabha. The combination augurs very well for India. And for all of you who are so young, and all of you who are Indians, it's going to be a fantastic place to be in for the next 25 years. We are going to see an opportunity that is unprecedented and extremely interesting. But if these issues are not taken care of, if we don't take care of tomorrow's India, problems and solutions, I think somewhere there will be social unrest, there can be pockets of anarchy, there will be social inequity, there will be social stress and tensions, and there will be economic disparities which will fuel their own set of problems. If you really look at economic indicators, India is doing well, but if you look at social indicators, we are in a complete mess. Where do we figure on corruption index? Where do we figure on child mortality? Where do we figure in terms of education of the girl child? Where do we figure in terms of healthcare? Where do we figure in terms of fighting disease like AIDS or tuberculosis? I think we have a long, long way to go on those battles. So while somewhere the gloss and the lipstick is very nice, but underneath we have very serious problems of this kind. So way forward in terms of education. I must confess that when I try to speak on education in the presence of doyens like Professor Bhushan, I feel somewhat like how the people in Lilliput would have felt when they had to give a speech in front of Gulliver. Literacy in India is 61%, male literacy is 73%, female literacy is a meager 48%. Primary education, unfortunately, is seen as the responsibility of the central and state governments, but higher NGO involvement is needed. The rural school infrastructure is terrible. We have schools without students, we have schools without roofs, we have teachers without students, and we have students without teachers. And the corporate sector involvement, some of corporate sector feels this is not my baby, it is someone else's problem. Technical education. I think in India, while we are considered as a country with a lot of educational institutions, there is a huge gap in terms of the quality and the standards. Vocational training, unfortunately, when 55% of your population which is agrarian, but that contributes only to 50% of your GDP, a lot of agri families are relocating to urban centers and causing urbanization. Are they employable? How many low-skilled jobs can you create? Where are the skill training? Where is the vocational training? Where do we produce the talent that is coming for tomorrow's industry? For example, if you look at retail, how do we get more people into retail? How do we get more people? Now with telecom and mobility being what it is, how can we encourage entrepreneurship? How can we encourage people to be self-employed? Now, is there a ministry for self-employment? There isn't. Who cares for it? How is it that we make people earn their daily bread through proper, ethical, honest means? I think that is a big concern I have. Retaining children in schools. Do you have any idea why do girl child drop out of school when they are 11 or 12 or 13? And research shows the tragedy is they don't have access to even sanitary napkins. And so in school, if they have their menses, then they are strong enough so that they become farm labor. Because we have got such a split up farming system, and as a consequence what happens? The future generations, they say you educate a man, you educate a man, you educate a woman, you educate the next generation. Said Brigham. What are we doing? How do we retain children in schools? We give away doles. But do you tell a parent that yes, if your child is in school, you get extra rations? You don't have to worry about the meal for that child. We will take care of it appropriately through midday meal. Can you give them extra rations because your child is getting educated and if the child crosses certain thresholds, they get certain other benefits. I think these are concerns, and I think the time has come. And on this platform, I would like to demand positive discrimination in favor of girl children. I think for centuries we have been a bigoted society, and I think it is time we change that. And finally, rural education, a paradigm shift towards job-oriented education. Very simple. Lower KG, class 1, 2, 3, 5. Is it relevant in rural India? Studying the same books of CBSE or whatever and having a standard curriculum that is taught in Mumbai, is it relevant in Kalahandi district in Odisha? What is needed? I mean, as Mahatma Gandhi said, you need reading, writing, arithmetic, and more importantly, skilling. How can you make them employable? How can you make them businessmen? How can you make them people who can, tomorrow be independent and not financially dependent on somebody else for their wages? And I think there is no emphasis on that, and that's why many of these problems still remain. Next. Health, clearly India, while we have 16% of the global population, unfortunately we contribute to 20% of the world's diseases, 33% of diarrheal, TB and respiratory diseases, and 20% of nutritional diseases. And we are probably the second in the world in terms of HIV and AIDS after South Africa. And public spending is today at a pathetic 1.3% on healthcare, which needs to go up to 3% of GDP. Medical tourism, we have world-class urban infrastructure, but who takes care of the urban poor or the rural poor? What facilities we have, what infrastructure we have? With all our doctors, with all our facilities, with all the telecom and with everything else, where are the remote diagnostics? Where is the remote medicine? Where is telemedicine? Where is what? We are nowhere there. Rural health, even basic hospital and healthcare is missing, and nobody cares. We need to look at homeopathy, Ayurveda, which are much, much more economical and which are also effective in their own way. And I think it's time that we look back to our own strengths and ensure that we capitalize upon it. Health insurance. It's such a tragedy that even any of us today, if we fall sick, I assure you, for us to be able to afford the treatment is next to impossible. Someone very close to my family unfortunately had hepatitis B. She is 54 years old. She was in the US and they diagnosed that she has some problem with the liver. So we flew her back to India, admitted her to a very good institute here in Bombay. And to be frank with you, it is a bill of 35 lakhs for a liver transplant. How many of you have that kind of insurance? Even if you have the money, you don't have cadavers. Even if there is a family member who's willing to donate, the mother doesn't want the daughter's liver. Even though the liver, even if you cut half of it, it grows within 1 month back to its original size and level of performance. So I think these are very, very genuine issues. So now what happens if somebody has a liver cancer and they don't have 35 lakhs with them? They die. ESIC, Employee State Insurance Corporation, a massive overhaul is needed. Next. Employment. Clearly, I have shared with you how much agri is 52%, industry 14%, services 34%. The manufacturing sector has huge potential for job creation. We can create 4 million new jobs each year. Foreign direct investment-led manufacturing growth, something like what the China model is. I hope we are able to create special economic zones and attract foreign investment. India, today China costs have spiraled. Today the Chinese RMB from about 8.4, which it used to be, is appreciated to about 6.4 against the US dollar. and China social security costs, wage bill has really burgeoned. Great opportunity for India. The rupee has weakened against the dollar, and so India can be very competitive from a manufacturing perspective. Services sector, a lot of job creation avenues, nearly 3 million jobs can be created. So India needs about 10 million jobs to be created each year, in case we have to ensure that the rural masses and the educated urban population gets reasonable employment. Financing of small entrepreneurs in both manufacturing and services, focus on cottage industries, rural self-employment, self-help groups. The Amul and the Seva experiments have to be taken pan-India. Why is it that Amul and Seva were so successful in Gujarat, and why have we not been able to replicate the model adequately elsewhere? And clearly, cooperative sector is something that also needs a lot of attention. Infrastructure, India is going to see about $1 trillion worth of infrastructure investment, and most of it is going to happen on power and the information sector, as also in the transportation sector. And capacity additions are going to be very significant. Nearly 100 gigawatts is going to be generated over the next 4 years. That is in the erstwhile 13-5-year plan. And I think that is going to be very good news, because if you have the roads, if you have the infrastructure, if you have the power, and you create a reasonable environment in terms of entrepreneurship, I think Indian entrepreneurship is second to none in the world. So what do we need to do for FDI-led manufacturing growth? A clear government policy on inviting FDI, a clear SEZ policy. Policies, the issue is, you do something in terms of, let us say, the coal sector, and the Supreme Court wakes up 20 years later and sets aside something that was done in 1994. Now coal blocks have been given in whichever manner it has been given. Thousands of crores have been sunk in. Power purchase agreements have been signed with those particular, for that coal availability. You have power plants wherein there is no coal. You can't import because it's infeasible, and the coal, which is our country's coal, is remaining underground. Why is it that there can't be a more rational, a better way to do it? Why does it need intervention from the Supreme Court? And to be frank with you, it is going to have a very debilitating effect on the banking sector. It's going to have a very negative effect, if not handled effectively, on the stock markets. And it's going to result in a huge amount of value erosion. So land acquisition issues, we all know what happened in terms of Singur. Very unfortunately in India, economic issues and vote bank politics are very intimately linked. Very often, chief ministers who are considered good from an economic perspective are not seen as good from a political perspective. Why did Chandrababu Naidu was doing so much in Andhra Pradesh? Why did he lose his elections? There have been numerous examples, Modi excluded, in terms of people who have. So there is a very good balance needed between good economics being seen as good politics. And very often good economics is not seen as good politics. So we need to have a cluster-based approach in terms of creating centers of excellence. We will need the textile cluster, the sports cluster, the toys cluster, the chemical cluster, and we need to stratify the country along these clusters and ensure that all the resources are provided to spur FDI-led manufacturing growth. International industrial estates. Why can't we have a Korean estate? Why can't we have a Japanese estate? Let's say in Vizag, we develop a Japanese infrastructure, Japanese industrial estate, invite Japanese education institutions, invite Japanese food entrepreneurs, and create a fantastic industrial estate, create some great golf courses there. Japanese love golf, and ensure that they come over and then they put up their money here and create business. When the Kyoto earthquake took place, it was a very good opportunity for India to have attracted Japanese capital out of Japan, and today Japan is so flush with funds that it doesn't know what to do with it. And I think we need to be very focused. Japan, China, Italy, Germany, China, Russia can be very, very attractive in terms of coming here, setting up huge infrastructure and then taking it forward. Population problem, I don't wish to comment too much upon it. Clearly we are growing at 1.6%, our median age is 25, but 25% of our population also lives below the poverty line. We have about 5% of our population above the age of 65, whereas 15 to 64, we are so incredibly young, is 63% of our population. I think we need to incentivize a single child in economically backward families in terms of education, health and job opportunities. Barefoot campaigners we need. We must examine raising the marriage age to either 20 or 21 from the present 18 years, and a lot of policy initiatives are needed, because if we leave this problem unchecked, this problem will come back and bite us. So what is an economic dividend today will become an economic liability tomorrow. The bureaucracy, I think clearly, I'm glad that Mr. Narendra Modi is doing a lot of fundamentally good things. But the most important thing is make bureaucracy independent of the political master. Create an opportunity for bureaucrats to play their role effectively and not be simply rubber stamps of what their political masters demand. I think, to be frank, even corporate India is to an extent responsible. It's not just the guy who takes, but it is the guy who encourages him to take. And there cannot be corruption unless there is a two-way traffic. So standing here on this podium, I cannot sound holier than the master, but unfortunately, we have made a travesty. We call it speed money or we call it whatever, but I think it's unfortunate and we must learn not to give. And we must learn to punish those who take and those who give. It's only reforms, whether it be finance, insurance, retail, education, healthcare, etc., ensuring that you don't have to go for permissions. You don't have to go for, let us say, some concessions. It's only that will ensure that corruption eventually gets beaten up. And clearly, there are backlogs in courts, there are backlogs in labor courts, backlogs in tribunals, backlog in the judiciary, and I think all that needs to be eliminated to kind of try and fix this problem. Next. I think let's spend a few minutes on what is the role of corporates and managers. We need to develop a social mindset while doing business. CSR is not just 2% of your profits that today the government demands. CSR has to not be seen as something which is statutory, but CSR should be from the heart. We need to look at upliftment of the villages and the catchment area from where we get our labor or from we get our services. We need to look at employee involvement. We need to galvanize the employee force, whether it be teachers, whether it be students, whether it be staff or factory workers. I think what we have is a huge amount of talent. If we can ensure education, healthcare, cleanliness, skill building, English communication, what can we do to teach vendors about P&L management, about employee management, helping small scale industries, giving them knowledge. I think if we take it upon ourselves, I think it will go a long way. I want to make one request today in this particular address. Mr. Yesaswy devoted his entire life for society. All of us are getting a great education here thanks to his efforts. Can I make a request to all of you? I am seeking only 10% of your time to do something productive and meaningful for society. 10% of your time. Fine. Let's cut it down to 5% of your time. 5% of your time can you devote, your lifetime. Let's say you live to be 80, 4 years. Can you give it for society? Can you do something that wipes away a few tears? Can you do something that gives someone hope? Can you do something that makes a difference? And if you resolve to do that in your life, and if you tell 10 other people to do that, I think you would have achieved a great thing in creating the new India, the India of tomorrow. Next. I think all these initiatives will clearly pave the way for making India the next manufacturing and services superpower. FDI-led manufacturing growth will create a lot of jobs. Indian exports will become very competitive. India will acquire global companies and India will go on the multinationalization path. Today, 70% of the Tata Group is outside India. It's only 30% of the Tata Group which is in India. IT, tourism, infrastructure, BPO, R&D, food processing, retail, automotive, exports, education, healthcare, all these are sunrise industry in my opinion where India can play a very dominant role. I had the pleasure about a year ago to have a breakfast meeting with President Bill Clinton. And I asked him, what is your view of India going forward? He says, Ram, I believe that India will have a major leadership role globally, both in economic terms and the political terms, and we see the signs of that today. Narendra Modi ji, the reception that he got in the US, what happened when the Chinese premier visited here, the kind of impact his visit had to Japan, etc., I think augurs extremely well for India going forward. Clearly, I see India becoming one of the top 3 economies in the world in pure GDP terms by 2030. And these are a summary of the key initiatives that need to be taken. But I think I would rather skip this and go to what the government is committed to doing. The government in the President's speech has come up with a 12-point agenda which focuses on business, attracting FDI, introducing goods and services tax, and creating a conducive environment for business. They said they will fight inflation. Diplomacy, they will do whatever it takes to create a peaceful, stable, and economically interlinked economy. The power sector is an urgent priority. Urbanization, job creation, defense preparedness, women's safety and empowerment, reaching out to minorities are all stated as key priorities of the government. And poverty elimination, Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, I think is a very, very important commitment. Healthcare and sanitation is something that I think will go a long way in improving the healthcare system in the country and upgrading infrastructure, both urban and long distance, through high-speed trains and roads and diamond quadrilateral, etc., are very important steps. There are some problems, of course, which can slow down India's growth story. The political will, in case for some expediency, is sacrificed. That's dangerous. Health and environment is very critical. Unbalanced growth can result in social stress and tensions. Indo-Pak relations or problems in Kashmir, if they erupt, that could have a cascading effect elsewhere. Communal tensions we need to be very watchful about. And if power and infra are not focused upon, then we will not have the firepower to blast ahead in terms of economic growth. The new India, what does it mean to all of us? I think the I in India stands for our intellectual ability, both IQ and IT. The N is for the never say die spirit. D is we are a powerful democracy and we are proving it again and again. I is for an innovative India. I see a lot of innovation happening going forward. And A clearly is for an awakened India. Today we are ready to move. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is our new India. 94, the economist called India a caged tiger. I'm very glad that today the Indian tiger is truly uncaged and is ready for the future. So I think on that note, I see a lot of tigers here in the audience and tigresses too. I'll just close with one small comment. I was going through, I am a student of Sanskrit and so I went back to my dictionary to find out what does Yasaswy mean. Yasaswy, the explanation is, it means eternal success with no obstacles in the way of achievement. Mr. Yasaswy lived up to his name. In fact, in the olden days and even today, one of the blessings that your elders or your priests give is Yasaswy Bhava. Friends, I think Mr. Yasaswy's life is a fantastic example for each one of you to be inspired, particularly those of you who are associated with an institution. I'd like to leave you. I'm one of those fortunate parents. My son studies in Stanford University. He is in his third year doing his computer science there. And my daughter is in Harvard Business School doing her first year in terms of her MBA. At the Stanford commencement address in 2005, Steve Jobs said, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." I want to request you to create the new India. Please have a passion for new India. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you very much.
For the function this evening, we have with us Mr. Singh, Management Advisor, Godrej and Boyce Manufacturing Company. Mr. Singh holds postgraduate diploma in Management Administration from IIM Ahmedabad. He was selected as a management trainee at Godrej and Boyce Manufacturing Company Limited. Progressing steadily, he acquired functional and cross-functional experience in consumer durables and industrial products. In 2001, he was appointed as the President of Industrial Products Group, having 4 businesses: process equipment, aerospace, tooling, precision engineering. As a member of General Management Committee at Godrej, he was actively involved in policy formulation, and he championed the cause of company-wide transformational initiatives such as total quality management and the application of theory of constraints. He was also actively associated with the CII and served on several national committees like defense, capital goods, oil and natural gas. He also served as the president of Bombay Management Association during 1995-96 and he continues to engage with it. Mr. Singh is currently associated with Godrej as a consultant. He is a prolific speaker on a variety of management-related topics at national and international seminars. May we please request Mr. Singh to share his thoughts.
This is Yasaswy, Professor Bhushan, Mr. Ramakrishnan, Professor Purundre, other dignitaries of the dais, in audience and friends. I must say that my only knowledge and association with Mr. Yasaswy was that I have read quite a few of his books which he wrote in his early part of career. Those were concerning taxation and personal taxation, how to save money on tax and how to prosper. Those days the salaries were in 3 digits. We started at 550 rupees. So saving a little bit of tax on that was of great importance to survive. So his books were of great help to us. I don't know today what are the salaries like. So maybe people don't worry about the tax, but we had to worry those times. So that is my thing, and his books were extremely insightful. And we knew that yash is something that one should seek in life more than wealth and anything. And he has, with God's grace, earned a lot of yash through educational institutions that he put forth, his entrepreneurship, his vision, and the like. So Ram covered a whole gamut of Indian economy, the problems and solutions and so on. So I'll take a little bit of different tack and I'll take a managerial perspective and say that what Rutter said, that India is not a poor country, but it is under-managed country. Because we are all management students, so I thought that would make sense. And if you were to take a scorecard of India as such today, I'm not a very, strict instructor. So very liberally speaking, I have given India on business climate D, on job scene D minus, and infrastructure F, corruption F minus, and so on and so forth. The average score of India on 8 such parameters is, I think, D minus. So we are in a horrible state in general. So how do we manage our way out of such a mess? Ram mentioned several problems in each and every possible field. So we have two great management thinkers who may come to our rescue. One is a person, the guru of quality, Dr. Deming. He taught us that how quality could improve businesses, institutions, the secret of Japan's greatness. And the other new modern guru, which is not really widely known in India, is Dr. Goldratt, who our performance is limited by the constraints that we fail to overcome. So he always believed that not only India, but the world over, or any organization, any institution can be far better performing if they learn the art and science of overcoming the constraints which are limiting its output. So applying this logic, that means you have to have good quality in whatever you do, but you must focus on the constraints that are holding you back. So let's apply theory of constraints to Indian scene. If we really apply, what we really see is that we don't simply have the money. Our tax to GDP ratio is about 15.5%, while in good developing countries it could be say 25%. In Sweden it is 50%. So if you imagine our about 12 lakh crores that we collect every year, if it were to become 20 lakh crores, instead of whatever it is today, how much more money we would have development and infrastructure build up and what have you. So one thing is we must find out, in Dr. Goldratt's language, more throughput. How do we generate more revenue? And therefore all the policies which are holding us back from generating more revenue, they ought to be examined and removed. And that solution you can apply to education sector, healthcare sector, power and what have you. Recently I happened to meet one economist of the World Bank, and he said that the world is no longer impressed by your 5.5% growth. It is passing. It is just ordinary. World wants to see 7% growth, which China has enjoyed in the last several years. So to jump from 5 to 7% is not a joke, considering our inflation, our other problems, creative, heritage problem and so on. So how do we have 2%? So in my view, all managers, if they practice quality principles better in their life, personal quality, institutional quality, work quality and so on, and we focus on the constraints that we encounter and we remove them systemically, that is, we remove at the level of supply, we remove at the level of demand or policy, and we overcome constraints successively, then we have a chance to enjoy the growth of 7%, 8%, which can take us out of our what you call D minus grade situation. And I think this is where we need to focus on in the coming years. So this I thought was a little framework, quality on one side, management of constraints on the other side, to boost or rather create new India. And of course, the role young students and managers have to play, educational institutions have to play, that goes without saying. But the key thing is what Ram mentioned, and Professor Bhushan earlier mentioned in the evening, it is the intellect with ethics. Only intelligence is not sufficient. We have to have intellect with ethics. So if we cultivate that, then we'll create a force which will help us overcome the huge challenges that we face in the years ahead. So I thought with these few remarks I would end my thing, and I would like to thank all concerned to have me here this evening and give me this chance to share a few of my thoughts with you. Thank you.